Welcome to Congress in Context.
It is Friday, January 23rd, 2026. And today we are doing a deep dive into the proceedings from earlier this week, specifically Tuesday, January 20th.
Now, if you were just scrolling through social media or, catching headlines on Tuesday, you probably saw a lot of noise. Clips of shouting matches about immigration, debates over civil rights, all the usual partisan fireworks.
But our mission here is to look past all that. We've gone through the actual source material, the Congressional Record, Volume 172, Number 13, to see what actually happened.
Exactly. We're looking at the whole picture. So that means the floor debates, which is the stuff you see on C-SPAN.
Right.
But also the extensions of remarks. That's the part of the written record where members can submit statements that weren't even spoken aloud.
But they're just as much a part of the official history. And when you look at the full record from Tuesday, you get this really interesting split-screen effect.
Yeah, on one side, you've got the political theater, the shouting.
And on the other, you have this surprisingly efficient legislative machine just cranking out bills on artificial intelligence and veterans affairs.
Really was a day of contrasts. So we're going to break down that Main Street legislation that passed, looking at how Congress is trying to get small businesses ready for, well, the AI revolution.
And we'll also look at the specific people who were honored in those written remarks, everyone from a Dallas sports legend to a Revolutionary War figure who might have actually named our country.
And we'll finish up with a look at the mechanics. We're going to explain a parliamentary procedure called suspension of the rules.
Which, if you don't understand how that works, you can't really get how anything gets done in Washington.
Okay, let's unpack this. Let's start with the legislation. Tuesday was heavy on bills from the Small Business Committee, and there was a very clear theme.
AI, artificial intelligence.
Which is a bit of a shift, isn't it?
It is. Usually when we talk about AI in D.C., it's all about regulation. How do we stop the tech giants?
Or national security.
Right. But these bills were laser-focused on Main Street. The question wasn't how to stop AI, but how to help, like, the local dry cleaner or the independent mechanic actually use it.
So the main bill here was H.R. 50764, the AI for Main Street Act.
This one was sponsored by Representative Alford from Missouri and Representative Schulten from Michigan. And Alford was very candid during the debate. He actually acknowledged a real fear in the electorate.
What, that AI is going to take over?
He noted that many people worry AI might overtake America. That's a direct quote. But his whole point wasn't to ban it.
Right. His point was that the wave is coming regardless. So the bill mandates that Small Business Development Center...
Those are the local hubs that help entrepreneurs.
Exactly. They must now provide assistance specifically for AI.
I mean, think about it this way. If you run a massive corporation, you've got a chief technology officer, you have a budget for R&D.
Sure.
If you run a mom and pop shop, you don't have the capital to hire some consultant to explain generative AI to you. Alford's point was that without this help, small businesses just get left behind.
And that ties directly into the companion bill that also passed, H.R. 574, the AI WISE Act.
The Artificial Intelligence Wisdom for Innovative Small Enterprises Act.
They really work hard on those acronyms, don't they?
They certainly do. But the logic here, which Representative Williams of Texas laid out, is sound. He pointed out that because small businesses lack resources, they're vulnerable to what he called snake oil salesmen.
People selling AI solutions that don't actually work.
Exactly, or tools that are insecure and compromise their data. So this bill is designed to help them critically evaluate AI tools so they don't get scammed or, waste their money.
It's bridging that information gap.
It is. And here's the key thing about the mood in Congress. H.R. 5764, the first bill, passed 395 to 14.
Wow.
And the AI WISE Act passed by a voice vote. That means it was so uncontroversial they didn't even bother counting.
It just shows that when you strip away the culture war stuff, there's this broad agreement that economic competitiveness depends on tech.
Right, no matter your party.
There were a couple of other small business wins that day, too, almost like cleanup bills. We saw H.R. 3496.
The Northern Mariana Islands Small Business Access Act. This was basically just a geography correction.
What do you mean?
Delegate King Hines from the Northern Mariana Islands stood up and pointed out that her district was the only U.S. jurisdiction excluded from the SBA microloan program.
Well, that seems like a huge oversight.
It was, and the context she gave was stark. She said the tourism industry there has basically collapsed.
So they're in a crisis.
A full-on economic crisis. They need these microloans to diversify their local economy. The House voted 383 to 8 to fix it.
And finally, on the business side, we had the Main Street Parity Act, H.R. 5763. This one's a little technical about loans, but why does it matter?
So it modifies the 504 loan program. Historically, the government assumed that limited purpose properties,
Like a bowling alley or a car wash.
exactly, things that can only be used for one specific purpose. The government thought they were a higher risk because, if the business fails, you can't easily turn a bowling alley into a law office.
So they made them put more money down.
A higher equity injection, yeah. But Representative Williams argued that the data just doesn't back that up anymore. These loans aren't failing at a higher rate.
So this bill lowers the requirement.
Down to 10% to match other projects. It creates parity for those niche businesses.
So if you're a small business owner, the takeaway from Tuesday is pretty clear. Easier access to loans for certain properties, and new federal help coming for AI.
Precisely. Now, shifting gears to the other big legislative bucket of the day, Veterans Affairs. We saw two bills here that really highlight the need to protect those who served.
The first one, H.R. 1663, the VSAFE Act, feels like it connects right back to that AI topic.
It's the dark side of that same technology. It stands for Veterans Scam and Fraud Evasion. Representative Calvert and Chairman Bose from Illinois spoke on this. They highlighted that bad actors are using sophisticated tech, including AI, to target veterans' pensions.
Chairman Bose used a specific phrase that really stuck with me. He mentioned scammers using patriotic guises.
That's right. Scammers wrapping themselves in the flag to rob service members. They use AI to mimic voices or create official-looking documents.
So this bill creates a new position at the VA.
A dedicated officer at the VA whose sole job is to hunt down these fraud schemes and coordinate with law enforcement.
And the second bill, H.R. 659, the Veterans Law Judge Experience Act. This one feels like a response to a massive backlog.
It is. Representative Takanit from California dropped a staggering number during the debate.
How big?
200,000 pending appeals.
200,000?
That's 200,000 veterans waiting for a decision on their benefits. It's a crisis. So Representative Brownlee's bill forces the Board of Veterans' Appeals to prioritize hiring judges with at least 3 years of relevant legal experience.
Basically saying, we don't have time for on-the-job training.
Exactly. If your backlog is that deep, you need people who can just hit the ground running.
So that was the legislative floor. A lot of agreement, a lot of let's fix this, but now let's pivot to the people. A huge part of the congressional record isn't debate. It's those extensions of remarks.
Right. This is where members submit written tributes, effectively reading them into history without saying them out loud. It's where you find the heart of a district.
And while not spoken on the floor, Representative Pat Fallon from Texas submitted a tribute to Thomas O. Hicks. If you're a sports fan, you know that name.
Oh, yeah, a huge figure in Dallas. He owned the Dallas Stars when they won the Stanley Cup in '99.
And the Texas Rangers.
Right. He passed away in December 2025, and Fallon used this space to memorialize not just the sports legacy, but his whole impact on the Texas business climate.
And then, up in Chicago, Representative Mike Quigley honored Rick Garcia.
A civil rights icon. Garcia was one of the Gang of Four who pushed through Chicago's Human Rights Ordinance way back in 1988.
Wow.
Quigley's tribute framed him as a foundational figure for the LGBTQ plus movement in the Midwest. It's a reminder of how long some of these fights have been going on.
We also saw a tribute to Lieutenant Colonel Cynthia Jean Trickett from Representative Beth Van Dyne. I mean, what a resume. 33 years in the Air Force and Reserves.
She responded to Hurricanes Katrina, Rita, and Harvey and the COVID-19 pandemic, a lifetime of running toward the crisis.
Then Representative Clyburn from South Carolina honored a Dr. Cecil Edward Eddie Floyd. He received the Order of the Palmetto,
which is South Carolina's highest civilian honor. He was a physician, a community leader. It's just a true pillar.
But here's the one that really caught my eye. Representative Mary Gay Scanlon from Pennsylvania submitted a commemoration for a man named Stephen Moylan.
Now this is a deep cut from history.
He was an Irish immigrant, an aide to George Washington during the Revolution. But here's the kicker. Scanlon noted that he is credited as the first person to use the phrase United States of America in a letter.
That is fascinating. It's wild to think that an immigrant fleeing religious persecution, which Moylan was, might have been the one to actually name the country.
So we have the bills, we have the people. But let's talk local connection. How does this D.C. stuff actually impact the streets in your neighborhood?
Sometimes it's abstract, but this week we saw some very tangible examples in those extensions of remarks. For instance, Representative Eleanor Holmes Norton from D.C. has a very specific local grievance about movies.
She wants to let people film at the Capitol, right?
Exactly. Right now, commercial filming is pretty much restricted to Union Square. In her written remarks, she argues that by limiting access, we're preventing modern storytellers from using the best modern vehicles, movies, and TV to tell the nation's story.
She has a point. Why use a green screen when the real thing is right there?
And then in Los Angeles, Representative Jimmy Gomez celebrated the 45th anniversary of the Arroyo Vista Family Health Center. It started in 1981, now serves 18,000 patients. Just a reminder of the role these health centers play.
And speaking of local impact, we have to talk about the earmarks.
Congressionally directed spending. These were listed in the appropriations process in the record. And this is where you see the hyper-local needs of districts.
Like what?
Well, for example, Representative Barr requested $2 million for the Triple Crown Business Park development in Kentucky. That's pure economic development.
But the one that stood out to me and really shows the diversity of this country was from Alaska. Senator Murkowski requested funding for Minto teacher housing and honey bucket hall systems.
That phrase, honey bucket, it really stops you in your tracks.
For listeners who might not know, what exactly are we talking about here?
It refers to a manual sewage collection, and it highlights a stark reality. While we're passing bills about artificial intelligence in Washington, there are American citizens in the Arctic Circle who still lack basic piped sanitation.
It's not just about building roads, it's about basic public health.
It really shows the spectrum of development we're dealing with, from high-tech business parks in Kentucky to essential sanitation in Alaska.
And that connects to the broader theme, our Why It Matters segment today. We have to talk about the contrast.
The vibe shift.
Yeah, the vibe shift.
Yeah.
We've established that the voting on January 20th was overwhelmingly bipartisan. Small business bills, veterans bills, huge margins.
Right. You even had Representative Takano, a leading Democrat, working with Representative Bose, a Republican. Takano literally said on the floor, sometimes in this body we actually do things that make sense.
Which is refreshingly honest.
It is. But then you have the speeches.
The one-minute speeches and the special orders. This is where the gloves came off.
Especially on immigration, Representative Wilson from South Carolina gave a speech praising President Trump's deportation efforts. He used very sharp language, criticizing what he called extremist paid rioters.
And then, almost like a rebuttal, you had Representative Shreve from Indiana. He quoted Representative Ramirez about funding for DHS and ICE.
And what did he say?
He stated a refusal to give money to what he called a rogue organization and explicitly called to defund ICE.
So in the same hour, you have one side cheering deportations and the other calling the enforcement agency illegitimate. That is a massive ideological chasm.
And it continued with the Civil Rights Hour. Representative McClellan led the Congressional Black Caucus. She contrasted Dr. King's legacy with Project 2025.
She quoted Dr. King's famous bad check metaphor, that Black Americans were given a check that came back marked insufficient funds. She was using that historical context to critique current voting rights challenges.
So if you only watched the speeches, you'd think Congress was on the verge of a brawl.
But if you only looked at the vote tally, you'd think they were all best friends. It's a reminder that while the messaging is polarized, the mechanics of governance often still function. Congress is basically two different bodies in the same room. One is legislative, the other is performative.
And on Tuesday, both were working at full capacity. Speaking of mechanics, let's do our quick classroom session. We mentioned these bills passed quickly because of a procedure called suspension of the rules.
Right. If you're a listener who checks congress.gov, you'll see this term a lot. It's the parliamentary engine for days like Tuesday.
How does it work?
Okay, so usually passing a bill is a long slog. Committees, amendments, long debates. But if leadership knows a bill is non-controversial, they move to suspend the rules.
Oh, what does that do?
3 main things. First, debate is limited to just 40 minutes. Second, and this is key, it prohibits floor amendments. You can't add a poison pill to kill the bill.
You vote on the bill as is, yes or no?
Exactly. But there's a catch. To stop the majority from just steamrolling everything.
What's the catch?
The voting threshold. You need a 2/3 majority to pass, not just a simple majority.
So if it's partisan, it dies.
Right. The fact that all these bills passed this way shows that leadership on both sides agreed these were safe consensus items. It's the fast lane for things everyone agrees on.
There was one other term I heard Representative Williams say a few times. General leave.
I ask unanimous consent that all members may have 5 legislative days in which to revise and extend their remarks.
That's the one?
That's general leave. It connects back to our extensions of remarks discussion. It's basically a permission slip for members to insert comments into the record that they didn't actually stand up and say.
Why do they do that?
Efficiency. I mean, if every member who supported the AI bill wanted to give a 5-minute speech, they'd be there for a week. This lets the written historical record be comprehensive without taking up hours of floor time.
It allows history to be written without the delay.
Exactly.
So to wrap up this deep dive into January 20th, 2026, we saw Congress that can, I guess, walk and chew gum at the same time. They can fight viciously about immigration while simultaneously holding hands to help small businesses use AI and protect veterans from fraud.
And we saw that the local impact is just everywhere, from a hockey owner in Dallas to a honey bucket system in Alaska.
If you want to verify any of this or read those bills yourself, especially if you run a small business and want to know about those AI resources, you can check out the congressional record for January 20th at congress.gov. Look for roll call votes 32 and 33.
And I'll leave you with this thought. We often judge Congress by the loudest voices, the ones that make the viral clips, but sometimes the most important work happens in the quiet votes, under suspension of the rules, or in those written tributes. Maybe the written record, in its quiet detail, tells a truer story of America than the one on TV.
Something to think about. Thanks for joining us on Congress in Context.